The first light of dawn slid through the thin lace curtains, painting soft golden lines across the wooden floor. The city outside was barely awake. A streetcar bell echoed somewhere far off, mingling with the smell of rain on the pavement. Lana sat at the window in her pale robe, knees pulled close, a mug of untouched coffee cooling beside her. She used to love mornings. They were the hours when everything felt new, when love had not yet remembered its troubles. But lately the mornings only reminded her of what had faded. The laughter that once filled these rooms had turned into a polite silence. Jack still lived here, still moved through the same space, yet he felt miles away. He entered quietly, barefoot, the sound of the floorboards betraying him. "You're awake early," he said, his voice gentle but uncertain. Lana didn't turn. Couldn't sleep. He stood behind her, looking at the reflection of her face in the window pane. The glass showed two people side by side who looked like strangers sharing the same ghost of a dream. "I made coffee," he offered. "So did I." They both laughed, but it was a hollow sound. Jack walked to the table and placed 2 slices of toast on a plate. "You've been quiet lately." "I've been thinking." "About what?" She finally looked up at him. Her eyes were tired, beautiful, and brave. "About us. About how easy it is to forget the sound of love when life gets loud." He leaned against the counter, arms crossed. "You think I've forgotten?" "I think we both have." The silence that followed wasn't cruel. It was fragile, like the hush that follows a confession too heavy for words. Jack exhaled. "I know things haven't been right, but we can fix it." Lana smiled faintly. "We keep saying that. Maybe we should stop trying to fix and start trying to feel." He didn't understand what she meant, not yet. Outside, a child laughed somewhere in the street. The sound floated through the open window and lingered in the space between them. Later that morning, Lana walked through the apartment, touching objects as if reacquainting herself with a life she once knew. Their wedding photograph hung crooked on the wall. She straightened it. Jack had taken that photo himself years ago, his camera balanced on a chair, the two of them caught mid-laugh beneath a canopy of fairy lights. She remembered the warmth of his hand on her back, the way he had whispered, "We'll make this forever." Now, forever felt like a story told by strangers. She opened her sketchbook and began to draw without thinking. Lines became shapes, shapes became faces. When she finished, she realized she had drawn 2 figures standing beneath a window, their backs turned to each other, both reaching toward the same light but never touching. Jack left for work before noon. The slam of the door echoed longer than usual. Lana watched him from the window as he crossed the street, shoulders hunched, phone pressed to his ear. He looked smaller from this height, a man weighed down by invisible things. She wondered if love always became this, 2 people living beside the ghosts of who they used to be. Her phone buzzed. A message from her friend Mariah blinked on the screen. "Dinner tonight? You need to get out of that apartment." Lana typed a quick reply, "Maybe. I'll see how I feel." She didn't go. Instead, she spent the evening listening to the hum of the refrigerator and the distant roll of thunder. She cooked for 2 and ate alone. When Jack returned, he smelled faintly of rain and office air. "You should have eaten," he said when he saw her plate untouched. "I did," she lied. He nodded, too tired to argue, and went to the shower. She heard the water start, then the low sound of him humming an old song. Once, that sound had comforted her. Tonight it made her ache. When he came to bed, she pretended to sleep. He lay down beside her carefully, as if afraid to disturb something fragile. The mattress dipped slightly under his weight. For a moment she thought she felt his hand reach toward hers under the blanket, but it stopped halfway. She opened her eyes in the dark. The faint outline of his body was there, inches away, unreachable. She wanted to whisper his name, to remind him that love was still possible. But the words stuck somewhere deep, heavy with everything they hadn't said. Morning came again too soon. The same light, the same silence, the same pattern of half-spoken care. Jack brewed coffee. Lana stared at the steam curling from her cup. They exchanged small sentences about weather, about work, about a bill they needed to pay. None about what mattered. At 9 o'clock, his phone rang. He smiled slightly when he saw the screen. "Who's that?" she asked, her tone light but cautious. "Just someone from the firm," he said. "A new project." She nodded, though something in her chest tightened. He gathered his briefcase and left with a quick kiss on her forehead, a habit more than affection. The door clicked shut. The apartment grew still again. By afternoon, the sky had turned gray. Lana sat at her desk trying to paint, but every brushstroke felt forced. She looked at her phone once more. No message from Jack. No warmth from the life they had built. She walked to the window and whispered to herself, "If love is still here, it's hiding." Her reflection looked back, strong, elegant, and tired. A thought formed quietly in her mind. Something has to change or I will disappear. That evening, Jack came home later than usual. The rain had started again, and his shirt clung damply to his shoulders. "Long day," he muttered, setting his things down. "You've been having a lot of those." He glanced at her, sensing the edge beneath her calm tone. "Yeah, the firm's been busy." "With that new project?" He hesitated before answering. "Yeah, that?" She studied him for a moment, then said softly, "I miss you, Jack." He froze, surprised by the honesty in her voice. "I'm right here." "No," she said, shaking her head. "You're everywhere but here." He didn't respond. The rain tapped gently against the windows. Lana turned away. "I'm going to bed." He watched her disappear down the hall, her steps light, deliberate, final. When she was gone, Jack sat at the table and stared at his hands. They looked the same as they always had, but they felt like someone else's hands, hands that had built something beautiful and somehow let it crumble. He picked up his phone. A new message flashed across the screen. "Still working late?" The name beneath it read Sienna. He hesitated, then turned the phone face down. The rain fell harder. The apartment seemed to sigh. Later that night, Lana woke to thunder. She reached out instinctively toward the other side of the bed, but it was empty. She rose quietly and walked to the living room. Jack sat on the couch, the glow of his phone lighting his face. For a long moment, she simply watched him unseen. The light flickered across his eyes, full of thoughts she didn't recognize. "Jack," she said finally. He startled, setting the phone down. "Couldn't sleep," he said. "Neither could I." They looked at each other in the half-light. Outside, the storm raged. "We used to talk during storms," she whispered. "Remember?" He nodded slowly. "Yeah, we'd sit on the porch at your grandmother's place and count the seconds between thunder. And you'd say the rain washed everything clean." "I still believe that," he said quietly. Lana's eyes shimmered. "Then maybe we need a bigger storm." She walked back to bed without another word, leaving him alone with the glow of the phone and the sound of the rain. The next morning, when the city woke, the world looked new again, washed, gleaming, uncertain. Lana stood by the window as she always did. But this time, something inside her had shifted. The light that touched her face felt different. It wasn't comforting anymore. It was a reminder. She whispered to herself, "If I stay still any longer, I'll fade." Behind her, the apartment door closed as Jack left for work. The echo of it lingered long after his footsteps disappeared. And in that silence, Lana finally knew that the still morning she had been clinging to was over. The evening air carried the scent of wet leaves and pavement as Lana stood before the grand gates of the Hollow House, the home of Jack's parents. The name wasn't official, of course, but that's what she had always called it in her heart. Hollow, because though it was filled with polished glass and soft light, it lacked warmth. She adjusted the collar of her dress, a soft navy fabric she had ironed twice that morning. Jack stood beside her, tall and quiet, his expression unreadable. He reached for the doorbell but hesitated. "Ready?" he asked softly. Lana gave a half-smile. "Do I have a choice?" He exhaled, pressed the bell, and moments later, the door opened. Margaret, Jack's mother, stood in the frame, draped in pearls and perfume that filled the space like a declaration. Her smile was practiced, perfectly polite, yet her eyes measured Lana in the same way one might assess a fragile ornament. "Lana, dear," she said, her tone dripping with the kind of sweetness that stings. "How lovely to see you. You look simple." Lana returned the smile, calm and composed. "Thank you, Mrs. Holloway. It's been a while." Yes, Margaret said pointedly, stepping aside. Jack, your father's in the study. He's been waiting to hear about that new promotion you mentioned. Jack nodded and walked toward the hall, leaving Lana standing under the golden chandelier with his mother. Margaret clasped her hands. You must forgive him, dear. Work has been his priority lately. Such dedication runs in the family. Lana's smile faltered slightly. I know. He's been working hard. Margaret's gaze softened, almost. And how are you these days? Still, painting, is it? Yes. I've been preparing a small collection. How charming, Margaret said, as if commenting on a child's hobby. You know, art can be such a lovely pastime when one doesn't have real responsibilities. Lana's fingers tightened around her purse, but she said nothing. Dinner was served in the grand dining room beneath a crystal chandelier. The table stretched long enough to seat 12, though only 4 sat tonight: Lana, Jack, Margaret, and William, Jack's father. William was a man of few words, built like a monument, tall, broad, every gesture deliberate. He rarely looked at Lana when he spoke. So he began, cutting into a steak. Still no children? Lana nearly dropped her fork. Jack glanced up, uncomfortable. Dad. William raised a hand. It's a fair question. You've been married 4 years. I assumed you'd have started a family by now. Lana steadied herself. We've talked about it, but we decided to wait until things felt stable. Margaret's lips curved into something like pity. Of course. Stability. Such a rare luxury when one's husband is constantly busy providing for 2. Jack shot his mother a warning look. Mom. Oh, I'm only making conversation, she said lightly, swirling her wine. I just worry sometimes. Jack works so hard and, well, it must be lonely at home for you, dear. Lana's throat tightened. I find ways to stay busy. Painting, yes, Margaret replied, her voice dipped in mock admiration. Such expressive colors. I do hope your next collection sells. The last one didn't, did it? Jack's fork froze midair. Mother. Margaret smiled sweetly. I'm just curious. Art is unpredictable, isn't it? Unlike law. The silence that followed was suffocating. Lana forced a polite smile. It is unpredictable, yes. But it's honest. Margaret's eyes glinted. Honesty can be costly. Jack set his fork down with a soft clang. Enough, Mom. Margaret sighed, pretending innocence. What? I'm proud of both of you. Jack's making partner, you're expressing yourself. Balance is important in marriage. Lana looked at Jack, waiting for him to say more. To defend her, to claim her as his equal. But he said nothing. He stared at his plate, his silence a quiet surrender. The food on Lana's plate turned cold. After dinner, Margaret insisted on coffee in the sitting room. The walls were lined with framed photographs of Jack's achievements, graduation, awards, his first courtroom win. Not a single picture of their wedding. As the men spoke near the fireplace, Margaret took the seat beside Lana on the velvet sofa. You know, dear, she began softly, men like Jack need certain things. Stability, admiration, support. They need women who understand their world. Lana looked at her, her voice steady. I understand him better than you think. Margaret tilted her head. Oh, I don't doubt your affection, dear. But affection is not always enough. Men like Jack, they notice when others understand them too. Lana's pulse quickened. What are you implying? Margaret smiled, the kind of smile that cut deeper than any insult. Nothing at all. Only that you should take care not to grow too distant. There's a young woman at the firm, Sienna, I believe. Bright, charming, ambitious. She's been quite involved in Jack's recent projects. Lana's heart went still. Margaret leaned back, sipping her coffee. I met her at the company gala last month. A lovely girl. Reminded me of myself at that age. Lana blinked slowly, her hands tightening on her cup. I didn't know Jack attended the gala. Oh, Margaret said lightly, he must have forgotten to mention it. You know how men are. The words sank like stones. Across the room, Jack laughed softly at something his father said, unaware of the storm quietly forming behind his wife's eyes. Margaret set her cup down and smiled sweetly. You should visit more often, dear. Family keeps people grounded. Lana rose from her seat. Thank you, Mrs. Holloway. For the dinner. Oh, leaving so soon? Yes, Lana said evenly. I suddenly remembered something I need to finish. Jack turned as she crossed the room. Lana, wait, what's wrong? Nothing, she said, forcing a smile. Just tired. But her voice trembled on the last word. The ride home was silent except for the rhythmic sound of rain against the windshield. Jack gripped the steering wheel, jaw tight. You could have stayed longer. I didn't want to, Lana said softly. He frowned. Mom was trying. Trying. She turned to face him. She humiliated me, Jack. And you let her. He sighed. You know how she is. She doesn't mean harm. Lana laughed bitterly. No, of course not. She just slices with a smile and calls it love. Lana. No, she said firmly. You stood there while she made me feel like an outsider in my own marriage. Jack's knuckles whitened on the wheel. I didn't want to make a scene. And I didn't want to feel invisible, she whispered. They drove the rest of the way in silence. When they reached home, Lana stepped out before the car had fully stopped. Rain soaked her hair as she walked up the steps, her heels echoing against the stone. Inside, she leaned against the door, tears finally spilling down her cheeks. She didn't know whether they were for his silence, his mother's cruelty, or the quiet realization that love, once again, had failed to speak up for her. Later that night, Jack found her sitting on the edge of the bed, her sketchbook open, pages soaked with smudged watercolor. I'm sorry, he said quietly. About tonight. Lana didn't look up. Sorry doesn't fix what silence breaks. He hesitated, unsure of what to say. Mom, she's old-fashioned. She doesn't understand you like I do. Then maybe you should have helped her try. Her words hung heavy between them. Jack ran a hand through his hair. I'll talk to her. It's not about her, Jack. It's about us. He sat beside her, his voice low. Then tell me what to do. She looked at him, eyes glassy and distant. I don't want to be something you defend. I want to be something you choose. Jack's breath caught. For a moment, neither of them moved. Then she closed her sketchbook, stood, and whispered goodnight. In the dark, Jack lay awake long after she fell asleep. The rain had stopped, but its echo lingered inside him. He picked up his phone again. A message waited, unread. Hope dinner wasn't too bad. You looked tense today. Want to talk? From Sienna. He stared at the words, thumb hovering over the screen. Then, instead of replying, he turned the phone off and set it aside. But the thought of her laughter at the office, her easy admiration, her youth, stayed like a whisper he couldn't silence. And somewhere in the quiet of that night, the distance between him and Lana grew just wide enough for someone else to step into the light. The days that followed the dinner at the Hollow House unfolded like a dream she couldn't wake from. Everything looked the same, the walls, the light, the familiar path of the morning sun across the kitchen floor, but something beneath it had shifted, quietly and irrevocably. Lana felt it first in the air. The way Jack moved differently. The way his phone stayed closer to him now, face down, screen dark. The way he smiled sometimes, not at her, not even at anything she could see, but at something in his mind that she was no longer part of. At first, she told herself it was nothing, that she was imagining it, projecting her hurt from that dinner into shadows that didn't exist. But the human heart knows when it's being replaced. She noticed small things. A faint scent on his coat, something floral, delicate, not her perfume. A new cologne he hadn't worn before. The way he hummed softly while scrolling through his phone at night, a tune she didn't recognize. It wasn't evidence, but it was enough to make her question everything. One evening, as the city lights blinked awake outside, Jack came home later than usual. The dinner she'd made sat cold on the table. Long day, she asked, her voice steady but thin. He nodded, loosening his tie. Yeah, meetings ran late. With who? Just the team. Sienna's been helping with the pitch. The name slid out easily, unguarded. Sienna, Lana repeated softly, tasting it like something bitter. Jack didn't notice. He walked to the sink, rinsed his hands, and continued talking. She's sharp. Reminds me of when I first started. Lana stood frozen. You mentioned her before. Did I? He turned, drying his hands. Yeah, maybe. She's been helping me organize some of the case files. Something inside her twisted. She must be very helpful. He frowned. What's that supposed to mean? Nothing, she said quickly, forcing a smile. Just an observation. He watched her for a long moment, trying to read the space behind her calm. Then he nodded slowly. You're imagining things again, Lana. Don't start. I'm not starting anything, she said quietly. Something already started. I'm just trying to see what it is. But Jack had already turned away. That night, she couldn't sleep. The rain outside had returned soft, endless, rhythmic. She sat in the living room with her sketchbook open on her lap, though her pencil didn't move. Her thoughts swirled with memories. The first time she met Jack at an art exhibit downtown, he'd been the only one who stood silently before her painting for 10 minutes, lost in its colors. He had said afterward, "You paint the way people feel when they're trying not to cry." Back then, he had seen her. Really seen her. Now she wasn't sure he even looked anymore. She turned a blank page and began to draw his face, not as it was now, but as it used to be. The soft eyes, the half-smile that felt like home. She tried to remember what it felt like to be loved that way. But as the image took shape, the lines blurred, and another shadow appeared beside him, a woman's silhouette, faceless, reaching toward him. Lana dropped the pencil. The graphite smudged across her fingertips like ash. The next day, she decided to go to Jack's office. She told herself it was a surprise visit, a simple gesture to reconnect. She baked his favorite muffins, packed them neatly in a small box, and dressed in a cream blouse he had once said made her look like sunlight in fabric. The receptionist smiled politely. He's in a meeting right now. Would you like to wait? Lana nodded and sat down in the lounge area. Through the glass walls of the conference room, she could see Jack, his posture relaxed, his laughter easy. Across from him sat a woman with golden hair pulled into a neat twist, wearing a pale blue dress. She leaned toward him slightly as she spoke, her expression bright, engaged, alive. Sienna. Lana didn't need an introduction. She knew. Jack's hand brushed Sienna's as they both reached for the same document. It was brief, accidental maybe, but something in the air shifted between them. Lana could see it, the tiny spark that two people create when they forget anyone else exists. Her stomach turned. She stood, leaving the box of muffins on the table, and walked out without saying a word. When Jack came home that evening, he found the house dark except for the faint glow of a lamp in the corner. Lana was sitting on the sofa, her expression calm, unreadable. You stopped by the office today? He asked. She nodded. I did. You could have said something. I saw you were busy. Jack hesitated. With Sienna. Lana looked up. Yes, with Sienna. He ran a hand through his hair. She's part of the team. You're making this into something it's not. Am I? She asked softly. Because what I saw didn't look like work, Jack. It looked like something you used to give me. His jaw tightened. That's not fair. Neither is being invisible in your life. He took a step closer. You're overreacting. And you're underfeeling, she said, her voice breaking just slightly. You don't even see it, do you? How far we've drifted. Jack's voice softened, almost pleading. Lana, I'm not cheating on you. I swear. She nodded slowly. I believe you. He exhaled, relieved. But that's not the problem, she continued. The problem is that you want to. The words hit him like a blow. He looked at her, stunned, searching for anger, for accusation, but there was none. Only quiet truth. I don't, he started, but she cut him off. You think about her. You wait for her messages. You smile when she speaks. I've been loved before, Jack. I know what it looks like. And I know what it looks like when it's gone. Jack stood there, wordless, drowning in guilt he couldn't name. Lana rose from the couch and walked past him. I won't beg for love that hesitates. For the next few days, they barely spoke. They moved through the apartment like ghosts, polite but distant. Lana spent more time in her studio, painting until her hands ached. Jack threw himself into work, staying late, always late. The nights were the worst. The silence between them grew thick, full of unspoken apologies and half-formed lies. One night, she woke to the soft vibration of his phone. The screen lit up briefly. Sienna, can't sleep. You still awake? Her chest constricted. Jack stirred beside her, unaware. Lana turned away, tears slipping silently down her cheeks. The next morning, she didn't mention it. She didn't need to. Some truths are too heavy for words. Instead, she packed her bag, kissed him lightly on the cheek, and said, "I'm going to stay with Mariah for a few days." He frowned. "Why?" "I need space." "We both do." Jack looked lost, caught between guilt and denial. "Lana, don't do this." "I'm not leaving," she said quietly. "I'm reminding you what it feels like to miss me." Then she walked out the door. At Mariah's apartment, the air felt different, lighter, freer. They spent the evening drinking wine on the balcony, the city below glowing in rivers of light. "You did the right thing," Mariah said, pouring another glass. "Men like Jack don't realize what they have until it's gone." Lana smiled faintly. "Maybe. Or maybe they realize it and just stop caring." Mariah reached over and squeezed her hand. "You're stronger than this pain, Lana. You always were." Lana nodded, staring out at the skyline. "I used to think love was enough." Mariah sighed. "Love is never enough. It's just the beginning." That night, as she lay on the couch surrounded by the city's hum, Lana closed her eyes and whispered into the dark, "Please, God, if there's still something left between us, show me how to find it." Outside, a soft wind brushed the curtains. Somewhere far away, thunder rolled a low, distant promise. Back at home, Jack sat alone in their bed, staring at the empty space beside him. He scrolled through his phone, thumb hovering over Sienna's contact. He wanted to text her, to feel something, anything, that wasn't this aching emptiness. But before he could, he saw a photo on the nightstand, Lana laughing under a summer sky, pain on her cheek, joy in her eyes. He set the phone down and buried his face in his hands. He had been looking for warmth in another light, forgetting that the brightest flame was the one waiting in the dark for him to remember.